The European Commission is recommending opening EU membership talks with Ukraine and Moldova. Commission President Ursula von der Leyen made the announcement in Brussels on what she called a historic day. Kyiv applied for membership shortly after Russia's invasion in February 2022, but was told to make reforms, including tackling corruption, before the first round of talks could begin. The process to become a member will likely take years. Our Brussels Bureau Chief Alexandra from Nahmen told us more about what today's announcement means for Ukraine and Moldova.
Well, this announcement today is certainly bringing both countries closer to their strategic goal of joining the European Union. And that is why both countries have welcomed this announcement today, with Moldovan President Sandu saying that this is an important milestone, and President Zelensky of Ukraine stressing that this is the right step in history, and also saying that this is what Ukrainians have deserved, because there are fighting for the European values. And especially for Ukraine, it is important to know that there is this recommendation that could boost morale in the country. However, there is one or two caveats there, because the member states of the European Union need to sign off on this recommendation, and some of them still have misgivings, saying that the European Union first needs to reform itself to be able to welcome new members. And even if they say yes to accession talks, this is, as you mentioned, a very long process, and it's not giving a guarantee for Moldova and Ukraine that in the end they will indeed become members of the European Union.
But nevertheless, a big step for Moldova and Ukraine. Alexandra, which other countries are knocking at the EU door and got news today?
Well, it was Bosnia-Herzegovina, and it was quite a surprise that the European Commission has said that it's recommending the opening of accession talks with Bosnia-Herzegovina once the necessary criteria are met. So there is a condition there, but still to hear the name of this Western Balkan country being mentioned today is a big surprise, because there are many officials, many EU officials and member states criticizing Bosnia-Herzegovina for backsliding on the rule of law and other democratic principles. And there was also good news for Georgia. The European Commission is recommending to grant Georgia a candidate status for the pro-European, mostly pro-European Georgian population. It is good news and huge news today.
DW's Alexandra von Nahmen there reporting. Thank you very much, Alexandra.
On a recent visit to Kyiv, the head of the EU commended the work Ukraine has done in its effort to become a member of the European Union.
I want to tell you how impressed we are by the reforms you've made in the midst of a war. You have reached many milestones, reforming your justice system, curbing the oligarchs' grip, tackling money laundering, and much more.
Brussels has fast-tracked the process for Ukraine, removing some requirements, but Kyiv is still expected to undertake extensive reforms before it can join the EU. No small task, but there will be big rewards. Being an EU member state would entitle Ukraine to substantial sums of money, large subsidies for agriculture and infrastructure spending. Ukraine is one of the world's top agriculture producers. In the EU, it would take the top spot from France and get the largest share of the EU's generous farm subsidies. A leaked internal study by the EU Council simulated what Ukraine's joining the European Union would mean for the bloc's budget. It showed Kyiv alone would be entitled to nearly 30 billion euros every year under the current framework. And that money will have to come from somewhere.
Currently, the biggest net contributors to the EU budget are big countries such as Germany, France, and Italy. Also big net contributors are Sweden and the Netherlands. Once Ukraine joins the EU, these countries are likely to have to pay even more into the EU budget. They are net receivers of EU cohesion funds, such as Estonia, the Czech Republic, Slovenia, Lithuania, and also Malta. These countries will have less funds to distribute to their disadvantaged regions using EU funds.
And farmers would have to take a 20% cut in their subsidies, so growers in Ukraine can also be subsidized. That's likely to be unpopular, so some member states are calling for reform in the EU before it can open its doors to new members.
We need to have the possibility for our own funding, for example, so that the money the EU is spending, we are, for example, getting out of taxing big companies or rich people or financial speculations, instead of just asking member states like Germany or Austria or the Netherlands to give money to the EU.
Aside from the thorny issue of money, Ukraine joining the EU would also alter the balance of power in the bloc. It'll be the 5th biggest member state by population size, and that will give it considerable clout in EU decision-making. A coalition of Ukraine, Poland, and other Eastern members could see the focus and power center of the bloc shift from west to east.